Welcome and thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Addy. I'm a Business Development Manager at Databrackets, and I will be your host for today's event. I'm also joined by our director, Mr. Srini Kolathur, who will be co-hosting the event with me. Databrackets has been at the forefront of supporting businesses to comply with SOC 2, ISO 27001, NIST, and other compliance certifications for over a decade. We planned this webinar to support organizations who are considering getting SOC 2 certified and help them demystify the SOC 2 journey. Businesses typically pursue their SOC 2 certification to impress prospective clients and sign more deals because this certification proves their commitment to information security. It is a highly respected credential, and it is vital while showcasing the efficacy of your organization's data security policies and procedures. However, the journey to becoming SOC 2 compliant and getting certified can be relatively smooth or fraught with obstacles. In today's webinar, we will learn about SOC 2 from our SOC 2 report expert, whom we work with very closely. We will begin by understanding which SOC 2 reports you need and how to succeed at SOC 2. You will also have an opportunity to ask questions about getting your report for your industry. But first, there are a couple of basic housekeeping rules to keep in mind. The duration of the webinar will be approximately 1 hour, including the Q&A session at the end. All lines will be muted during the presentation. I encourage you to submit your questions as they come up. You can simply type in your question in the chat panel on the right side of your screen. For those of you who have already submitted your questions, thank you. We will be addressing them at the end of the prepared presentation. This presentation deck is also available in the handout section of the GoToWebinar panel for you to download. We will be emailing you the link to the recorded webinar, and you can also connect with us on social media or via email and phone. I'd like to begin with our disclaimer. This webinar has been provided for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended and should not be construed to constitute legal advice. Please consult your attorneys in connection with any fact-specific situation under federal law and the applicable state or local laws that may impose additional obligations on you and your company. A brief introduction about Databrackets. We are a one-stop shop for all your compliance requirements. We have a team of security experts, and our services are offered in 3 formats: do-it-yourself toolkits with policies, procedures, and employee training, consulting services where you can connect with our experts, and managed security services to help you stay secure continuously and not just when you're getting certified. Our team and organization have a range of certifications from A2LA, CISA, CISM, CISSP, CIS, etc. We offer compliance services for a variety of frameworks and assessments, ranging from HIPAA, ISO, SOC 2, and a variety of cybersecurity and compliance standards. We also do pen testing for our clients. Now I'd like to turn the focus to our trusted SOC 2 auditors, Bernard Robinson and Company. They are a CPA and advisory firm servicing clients, and they have businesses throughout the Southeast for 75 years. With nearly 200 employees and 7 offices, BRC is a leading North Carolina accounting, tax, and advisory firm. They work with businesses of all sizes and also provide additional resources when needed. They are a team of passionate, relentless, diligent, results-driven, and creative problem solvers. I now have the privilege of introducing our guest for today's webinar, Mr. Ben Hunter. Ben is the Chief Information Security Officer at BRC and is a Senior Manager at the firm's Risk Advisory Services practice. He specializes in cybersecurity and information technology audits and assessments. Ben's ISACA certifications include CISM, CISA, and CRISC. He has years of experience performing cybersecurity, risk and control assessments, HIPAA audits, phishing, ransomware awareness, and security training, business continuity planning and disaster recovery planning and testing, IT internal audits, systems vulnerability scanning assessments, CIS security assessments, and of course, SOC 1, 2, and 3 reports and SOC for cybersecurity. I now hand it over to Ben to take us through some vital insights about SOC 2.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here and to talk with y'all about the SOC for Service Organizations reports, in particular the SOC 2 report. So, what are SOC reports? They're an internal control report which independent CPAs provide, like BRC. And the reports are on the services that an organization provides. It's useful for evaluating the effectiveness of controls related to the services performed by the organization. It's an appropriate report to understand how the organization maintains oversight over third parties that provide services to customers. It helps reduce the compliance burden by providing one report that addresses the shared needs of multiple users. And it enhances the ability to obtain and retain customers. So some further benefits of a SOC 2 examination.
Ben, may I stop you for a minute, please?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a bit of an issue with the audio.
Okay. Let's see if
could you say something and I'll be able to confirm if we can hear you clearly?
How about, is that better, Addie?
Much better, much better. Thank you, thank you.
All right, I apologize, I had to switch microphones. Okay, so there's some additional benefits of a SOC 2 examination. So it does help the organization provide oversight. It helps the organization create oversight for their own controls. It is a leading security report issued by an independent third party. It helps with the vendor management. So not only the organization that's getting the SOC 2 examination, does it increase their ability to an insight into their vendors, but it also, a big reason for the SOC 2 is that it helps the readers of the report, the customers of the organization, to enhance their vendor management programs. And it also will allow the organization to just provide one report instead of having to fill out multiple vendor questionnaires from their customers. And it increases internal corporate governance and risk management processes, and it enhances the regulatory oversight. So when you look at SOC 2, there are two types of reports. So there's a type 1, when it comes to SOC reports, there's a type 1 report and a type 2 report. If you get a SOC 2 type 1, you're getting one that is referring to your controls as of a point in time. So it is a day. For example, today is May 12th. So you can get a report as of May 12th. And so the type 1 report is describing your system, and the auditor is doing an examination of your controls to verify that they are designed appropriately, that they are designed to achieve the system requirements that your customers need as of that time, as of that day. A type 2 report is for a period of time. So it can be 3 to 12 months is that period of time that is being examined, and it will look at the description of the system as well as the design and the operational effectiveness of the controls for that period of time. So a type 1 report, generally organizations only get that once, sometimes as a preparation for the type 2. You don't have to get a type 1 ever. You can go from preparation directly into a type 2 report if you get your controls operating and they're effective and you're ready to go. But the type 2 is the gold standard. It's what most readers of the reports are looking for, because they want to see not just that you have controls designed appropriately, but they want to see that you and your organization are actually performing those controls on a day-to-day basis. And that is where the type 2 report comes in. Next slide. So a SOC 2 report specifically is based on the trust services principles. And the trust services principles are security, availability, confidentiality, processing integrity, and privacy. Now, security is the foundation of a SOC 2 report, and in the security controls and criteria are part and tested in every single SOC 2 report. Where a SOC 2 provides a lot of flexibility is management gets to decide which of the other 4 principles, availability, confidentiality, processing integrity, and privacy, are relevant to their customers and the readers of their reports. And then they can add those to the report and have those controls and criteria examined during the SOC 2 examination to provide the knowledge and the information that the readers of the report need. Next slide. So let's look at the timeline of a SOC 2 examination. You notice that I keep using the word examination because SOC 2 is not a certification. It's not like ISO 27001 where you get certified as an ISO compliant. SOC 2 is an examination of management's controls, and I'll go into more detail a little later as exactly what that difference is and why SOC 2 is different from other certifications or other reports that you can get. So the timeline, first you're going to start off with deciding, hey, my organization needs a SOC 2. My customers, my vendors, the people that rely on my organization need to understand how our controls are functioning and how we are securing our data, how we're making sure that our service is available 24/7, 365, or 99.99% uptime, whatever your needs are. And so it starts with, well, yes, we need to get a SOC 2, and then the readiness. So the first part is the readiness, the planning, doing an assessment of your current controls, your policies, procedures. Do you have everything in place? Then remediating the gaps that are found in the readiness assessment and making sure that you have everything you need to meet the trust services criteria that will be tested during the examination. Deciding whether you should start with a type 1 or go straight to a type 2 report, and then continuing with the testing and the examination phase. Then after you get your first reports, the continuous functionality of your controls. So monitoring is part of the process. Part of the process for management should monitor that their controls are in place. And then a SOC report generally turns into an annual examination, because the readers of the report expect to receive that on an annual basis to confirm that your controls are still designed appropriately, they're still operating effectively, and you're still taking the responsibility for your customers' data seriously. And each of those phases can be as long or as short as the organization decides. So your readiness, if you're a more mature company and you have a lot of things in place, the readiness could be as short as a couple months. The examination can be, as we mentioned, a type 2, can be 3 to 12 months. That's the reporting period. The testing and reporting, so the actual examination, the testing of the evidence that the auditor does, and then issuing the final reports, that generally takes 6 to 8 weeks. and then you roll into the next reporting period. That's where the organization is doing the monitoring of their controls. As we move on to the next slide. So how to succeed at SOC 2? As I mentioned, it is not a certification. It is not a check the box examination. It's an examination of how your business functions all of the time. So it's not, especially the type 2. Obviously, the type 1 is a point in time, so it's are your controls designed as of today. But a type 2, which is what most people are looking for when they ask for your SOC report, it is over the period of time. So it's not check the box. Your security controls need to be functioning all the time. Your service that you're providing, it needs to be available all the time, especially if it's a cloud-based service where they're coming to your website. They expect your website to be up all the time. You should always be performing your controls. So the big difference between, or the only difference between, what you're doing today and what you'll be doing in 6 months when you're in the middle of your SOC 2 examination period, or even if you have your SOC 2 issued, is the maintaining of the evidence. So today you should be performing security controls. You should be doing background checks on your new hires. You should be onboarding them appropriately and giving appropriate access that's limited based on their job needs. You should have firewalls and be performing backups. That should be happening now. So the difference between today and 6 months or a year from now, when you have your SOC 2 report, is that in a year from now, you're going to understand what evidence you need to store and maintain to prove that your controls are adequately functioning. So a SOC 2 is a confirmation of how you operate all the time, not just a one-time examination or certification. And so that's how you succeed, is perform your controls. So as we mentioned, the steps, there's the planning. There's an old saying that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That applies as well to a SOC 2 examination. So you plan the process, you go over, you do your gap assessment. What policies and procedures are you missing? What controls do you not have in place? Maybe what monitoring applications or software or security. If you've tried to get cybersecurity insurance anytime in the last 6 months, you're probably highly aware that two-factor authentication is essential, and that's one of the controls that will be tested as part of a SOC 2. And if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, but we're going to look at those gaps. So, a preparation engagement with databrackets or somebody else that's helping you is going to look at those gaps and say, hey, these are some gaps that you're missing. That the auditor is going to be looking for, implementation of the remediation plan, and then retesting of these controls. And then you go into your audit period where you're performing the controls, you're storing the evidence, you're maintaining and monitoring your own controls. And then the audit period ends, or the examination period ends, and then the audit takes place where the auditor, BRC, or the independent CPA, is going to look at all that evidence that you've provided and verify, confirm, or attest that your controls are designed appropriately and operating effectively, and that your system description meets the description criteria. All right, and so that's the quick way to succeed at SOC 2. At this time, we will dive into some frequently asked questions. Some questions that databrackets and all of their work with their clients have seen often, and questions that I, through my work performing SOC reports for many years, have often seen. The first one is, do we need a SOC 2 certification? Yes, and it depends. So generally, organizations get a SOC 2 examination, a SOC 2 report, because they're being asked for it. So yes, if your clients are asking for it, if your customers are asking for it, if your potential customers are asking for it, then yes, you need a SOC 2 examination. You need to get your SOC 2 report. if you are getting multiple vendor risk assessments, if you're being sent a bunch of questionnaires and you're having to fill those out, and in fact, some organizations, they get so many, they've had to hire a dedicated person to fill out these questionnaires, then yes, you need a SOC 2 examination, because with the SOC 2 report, you can present one report and answer over 90% of all the questions that are in that questionnaire that you're getting. And often they won't even need to send you that anymore. If you can provide your SOC 2 reports, they won't even send you the questionnaire anymore. And yes, if you want to present your organization as one of the leading organizations that take security and your client obligations and the confidentiality of your clients' and customers' data seriously, if you want to present your organization as someone who takes that responsibility seriously, you do want a SOC 2 examination. All right, so the next question is, who needs a SOC 2 examination? So any organization that is providing a service to customers or is processing customer data or has access or storing customer data needs a SOC 2 examination, a SOC 2 report. So that's pretty much, if you fall into any of those categories, then you need one. All right, the next question is, well, how do I prepare for a SOC 2 audit? Well, you know, the beginning of this presentation, I walked through some of those steps. I would say, and also a simple way is to follow the databrackets SOC 2 preparation guide. I know they have a document that they can provide that walks you through the process and answers a lot of your questions. So to prepare on a more technical basis, you need policies, documented policies written down that are reviewed and approved by management and are spread or presented to the entire organization, all employees, and that all employees understand what their obligation and responsibility is to follow and comply with those policies and implement those controls and procedures. And they understand the necessity for the controls to keep the company and their company's data, their clients' data secure. You need support and buy-in. A SOC 2 examination is not a simple process, especially year one. There can be quite a few hours that are dedicated to completing the SOC 2 examination. Now, year two is a lot easier because you've already been through it and you understand what evidence you need to store, but the first year can take some time, which is why it's great to have a hands-on partner like databrackets to help prepare you. You need a culture that supports and understands the benefits of controls, that controls are not just documentation exercises, but that they provide a framework for success, for the success of the organization. They provide a framework for providing excellent customer service, or whatever your mission is in your organization. Controls help your employees fulfill that mission of the organization.
Ben, before we move to the next question, I just wanted to quickly ask you, our clients normally have this doubt, you know, so employee training, user training on security, on controls, is that part of how you prepare for the SOC 2 audit as well, or?
Absolutely. So, you know, part of the trust services criteria include your onboarding process, making sure your employees have security awareness training and have training on the policies and procedures that your organization has in place. But to prepare and succeed, you do want that buy-in. You want the buy-in from upper management, from the very top, whether it's the board of directors or the owner, as well as buy-in from your newest intern or employee, that these policies, procedures, and controls are essential to the success of the organization. And that is, part of that is that employee training. Yes, ma'am.
Got it. I guess it comes back to the statement you made that SOC 2 is about how you operate all the time. So everybody all the time, are the controls functioning? And if they are, then that's how you can be ready for your SOC 2 audit.
Exactly.
Very good question. Can you fail a SOC 2 audit?
There we go. Can you fail? Well, not really. So a SOC 2 examination is not a pass-fail exercise. So in receiving a SOC 2 examination, you receive an opinion from an independent CPA auditor that the description of your system is presented appropriately, that your controls are designed to meet the service commitments and system requirements that you have established for your system, and that those controls are operating effectively for that period of review, that time period, for a type 2 SOC 2 report. All right. If your system is presented correctly, your controls are designed and operating effectively, then you will receive what's called an unqualified report. And that is the best type of audit opinion that an auditor can give. However, if some of the controls are not operating effectively, you could still receive an unqualified report. So in the section of the report where it details each of your controls and the tests that the auditor did and whether those controls passed, there is a pass-fail part for each individual control. And so some of those controls could have failed or not operated perfectly, meaning maybe you hired 25 new employees during the audit review period. And in the sample that the auditor chose, 2 of those employees did not complete the new hire orientation and the new hire training. So therefore, that onboarding control did not pass. But 2 out of the sample does not mean your entire report fails. It just means that one control did not, it failed. Having 1 or just a few controls fail does not mean that your entire report fails, and you can still receive an unqualified report. However, if a bunch of controls did not operate, or if a few controls concentrated in one area, for example, in your change management process, if a 3 or 4 of the controls that are part of your change management process failed, or 3 or 4 of the controls that are part of your backup process failed, then you could receive what's called a qualified report, because that area, change management or backups, the whole area failed because of 3 or 4 controls. So a qualified report states that, it means the auditor states that overall your controls are good, except for the controls around change management, or except for the controls around backups. And so the auditor is going to call out those particular failures because the auditor feels in his or her professional judgment that those control failures are significant enough that the reader needs to see those immediately at the beginning of the report. Of course, you still have a SOC 2 report. You still completed a SOC 2 examination, and your clients can decide, they can read it, and they can decide if those individual control failures are significant enough to terminate the relationship with your organization, or if they can deal with that and that meets their risk profile and it is not significant enough for them to terminate the relationship. Everybody has a different risk profile. You see that easily on the highway. Some people are extremely risk adverse and they drive the exact speed limit and they stay in the right-hand lane and they keep 3 or 4 car lengths between them and the car in front of them, etc. Other people have a higher risk tolerance and they're in the left-hand lane and they're doing 15 or 20 miles an hour over the speed limits and they're riding right on the bumper of the car in front of them. Those are individual risk profiles. We also see that with companies. So having a few controls fail for one of your customers may not be a big deal. For another customer, that may be something of a concern. However, you as the organization getting the SOC 2 examination, you have the option and the opportunity to respond to any of the control failures or exceptions, as auditors call them. And so you get to respond, and your response goes in the report. So your customers, the readers of the report, they can see that one of your controls failed, or for example, 2 new hires didn't receive the new hire training. You could respond that those 2 new hires started right at the beginning of a holiday, and then they had a personal issues that took them out, and when they come back, it just slipped through the cracks, and you have created further monitoring processes to make sure that all new employees are going to receive the training. So you can provide a response to anything that might have an exception in your testing. And something to remember is a SOC 2 report, it's a reporting framework. So a SOC 2 is not a control framework like ISO, it's a reporting framework. So the controls are up to management, and how you implement those controls is up to management. So if you understand where the CPAs, where SOC 2s come from, they come out of the AICPA, the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. And the organization designed financial disclosures and financial audit reports, audit financial statements. And when you come from that perspective, CPA auditors are all about disclosure, whether it is financial risk on financial statements or IT risk with a SOC 2 report. We as CPAs want to provide the readers of either the financial statements or the SOC reports the information needed for the readers of those statements or reports to make an appropriate financial or IT risk decision. People still invest in companies that are losing money, and the financial statements disclose that those companies are losing money, and people still choose to invest in them. People will still work with vendors who have controls that don't operate effectively all the time. From an audit perspective, from a CPA perspective, we just want to make sure that the readers of the reports have the appropriate information, the disclosure, to make an appropriate risk-based decision either with their data in a SOC report or their money with financial statements.
That is an amazing response, Ben, that the details of the report really tell the true story, and it is not a pass or fail. So thank you for sharing this.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll move to the next question. How do we maintain this compliance or this examination or this certification? How do you maintain it? Because it's not a one-time thing. You get it, you get your SOC 2 report, you have, everything is good, but it doesn't end there. So how do you maintain your SOC 2 compliance?
Correct. Well, it goes back to that statement we said earlier, where a SOC 2 examination is looking at how your business is functioning all the time, how your controls are operating all the time. So you should always be operating your controls. They should always be in place. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the big difference should be between pre-SOC 2 and post-SOC 2 is only the maintenance of the evidence, the collection and storing of your evidence. So it is not a one-time examination or one-time report. So the readers of these reports are looking to receive these every 12 months. And so the SOC reports are looking backwards in time, either a point in time. So if you choose May 12th as your point in time, you're going to get the report issued sometime near the beginning of July. So that report is going to go look back to May 12th. And are your controls designed appropriately as of May 12th? For a type 2 report, we're looking back 6 to 12 months, and did your controls operate for that 6 to 12 months? And so your customers are looking back at that report, and then 12 months from the issue date, they expect to see the next 12 months of history of your controls, and then the next 12 months of history of your controls. So to maintain it, it is an annual examination, and you just keep your controls operating the way they should for the benefit of your customers and your company.
Perfect. Now we have a very important question. Can you get SOC 2 compliant fast? We hear of a lot of companies that say, get SOC 2 compliant in weeks, not months. They offer platforms. But is it possible? What does it mean getting SOC 2 compliant fast or not getting it fast?
So can you get SOC 2 compliant fast? My experience and my response is maybe and not really. Now, fast is not a specific period of time. Fast is relative. So when I say maybe you can get it fast, well, yes, if you are a mature organization and you already have policies and procedures in place and your teams already comply with all of your controls that you as management have put in place, then sure, you could get a report in 2 to 4 months if you're already that mature in your control processes. However, 99% of companies that are looking to start completing a SOC 2 examination are not that mature. They don't have all their policies and procedures in place. They are not operating their controls as effectively as they need to have a successful SOC 2 examination. So the time frame is how long it takes you to put those in place. And what's important is there's a lot of great organizations out there that have template policies that often say, hey, take these 25 or 15, however many policies, control, find, replace company name with your company's name, and you've got all your policies you need for SOC 2, and you'll be ready for the examination. Well, that's not exactly true. Having policies written is step one, but then you have to actually implement those because the auditor is going to look at your policies. And if your policy says that, and I'm picking something that's not true for SOC 2, I'm picking something really minute for the example to share. So if your policy says that you have 2 front doors and the left door is always locked and everybody has to enter and exit through the right door, and that's written into your policy, guess what? The auditor is going to come check and he's going to pull on the left door and pull on the right door. And if the left door opens, that control fails because it was written in the policy. But if you had nothing about the left door being locked in the policy and just had, we have front doors that open and close, then we're not going to test that the left door is locked. So if you have something written in the policy, you actually have to be performing it in order to pass that control and have that in the report. So these templates of policies are great and they're a great start, but then you actually have to implement what they say into your organization, and that takes time to implement these policies, to confirm that the controls are in place, to monitor and test on your own or with a partner like databrackets to make sure that you're prepared to have a successful SOC 2 examination.
That is very insightful then, that until you own the policy, it doesn't work. Buying templates or getting set up on a security monitoring platform that's not the magic sauce. You have to own it, you have to believe it, you have to follow it all the time, and it doesn't happen fast. Only the monitoring, checking will happen fast, but not getting the compliance. That's going to take a lot of effort and buy-in.
Exactly.
So we move to the next one. Very important question, very connected to our topic for today. How to succeed at SOC 2 is one of the ways is you make sure that you handle the pitfalls. So what are the pitfalls during the SOC 2 prep? What should companies avoid during their SOC 2 journey?
Well, a SOC 2 is very flexible in the controls that management gets to put in the reports and have tested with the scope and boundaries of the system that is going to be described and tested in the report. So there is a lot of flexibility, and with that flexibility eliminates a lot of pitfalls. But a big one is management and the company should avoid the check the box syndrome. So a SOC 2, as we've reiterated multiple times, it is testing how your company operates all the time. So it is not a check the box of, okay, we did this today and we did this today and we did this today, and we don't have to look at this or touch this or do this ever again for another year or 3 years or whatever other types of certifications or examinations their process is. It's not a set it and forget it exercise. Are your controls around security and availability and confidentiality and processing integrity and privacy of your data and your company's data and your client's data, are those controls in place and functioning on a daily basis? And that's what the customers are looking for, and that's what makes a SOC 2 so powerful as a compliance report, because it provides that assurance to your customers and to your regulators that you are taking care of their data and your company's data in an effective and appropriate manner.
Wonderful. That's very helpful. Very important questions now about the public cloud. How does SOC 2 apply to the public cloud, and how can we meet the SOC 2 requirements in the cloud?
So yes, the SOC 2 obviously absolutely applies to the cloud. So if you are using cloud-based vendors or applications or cloud hosting, hopefully those cloud-based vendors and applications and hosting services have their own SOC 2 report that you and your auditors are reviewing as part of your vendor risk management process. But as we all know, even if your entire system is in the cloud, that cloud provider, that hosting provider, whether it's Google or AWS or Azure, they all have specific controls that are the responsibility of the user. So just because your system is hosted on Google Cloud Services does not mean your responsibility for your data is completely abdicated to Google. There's a lot of controls that you are responsible for as a user of Google Cloud Platform, and that applies to all the cloud platforms. And so your customers want to know, are you handling your portion of the cloud responsibly? And so, yes, even if you're using a cloud vendor, you should be getting their SOC reports, and then you still need a SOC report to attest to how you're handling your portion of those controls.
That's really helpful. I think that also answers the next question in part, where we said, if our cloud service provider is SOC 2 certified, as a SaaS vendor, do I still need a separate SOC 2 certificate? And I think you've said clearly you do for your part of managing the customer data. They need it for their share, and you need it for your contribution in the whole process.
Yes, ma'am.
Ben, is there anything else you'd like to share on this before we move to the next question?
Nope, I think that got answered on the previous slide, yes.
Okay. The big one, what is the difference between SOC 2 and ISO 27001?
So a few differences have been mentioned so far in this meeting. So ISO 27001 is an IT management control framework that you have to comply with to get the certification, to get that certificate. So you do not have a choice. If you are going to be ISO 27001 certified, there is the ISO controls that you have to follow verbatim, word for word. There is no, well, that doesn't really apply to my organization. No, you have to figure out how it applies and comply with it. It is very black or white, yes, no, to get that certificate. Where a SOC 2 provides a lot more flexibility. Every organization implements their own controls in their own way to meet those trust services criteria. So there are the 5 trust services principles with the trust services criteria underneath that have criteria to meet about management oversight, about access controls, about network monitoring, about backups. So those are criteria to meet, but how management meets those is completely up to management. Whether you need to back up your data weekly or daily or every 30 minutes, that's up to you. Whether you back up to a tape drive or back up to a cloud, that's completely up to you. management gets to define your system. So the system that you're getting examined, tested, management gets to decide what is in scope for the system and what is out of scope for the system. And so with that flexibility, it makes it a lot more powerful for customers to understand exactly what management is doing. And that's why the reports are so long and there's so much description. You know, ISO, you get a certificate because everybody knows, anybody can go to the ISO website and download all of their 100 plus, what's it, 180 controls, something like that. You can see all of the ISO controls. And so you know that that's what management is doing based on them having an ISO certificate. Whereas a SOC 2 report is often 50, 60, 80 pages long because the SOC 2 report has to describe the system and then describe all of the controls that management is doing. So you get a lot more knowledge about what the organization is doing.
That is very, very insightful, Ben. The size of the report and how it's configured and how both of these benchmarks are equally important to clients. So thanks for highlighting the differences between them. We'll move to another very important question. What are the alternatives to SOC 2, if there are any?
Well, there's not really any alternatives to SOC 2 because it is such a unique reporting framework. So, you know, there are other certifications and control frameworks that you might need to comply with, such as the ones on this slide that databrackets can help you with. But what's awesome, in my opinion, about the SOC 2 report framework is the flexibility. So you can add some of these other frameworks to your SOC 2 report. If you're in the healthcare industry and you need to comply with the HIPAA security and privacy rules, you can add those to your SOC 2 and have that in that one report. You need to comply with GDPR, you can add that to your SOC 2 and get that tested all at the same time. So you only have one examination per year, you get one report, and it shows that you can comply with HIPAA or comply with GDPR or comply with you know, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, if that's something, you know, whatever it is that your organization and your industry requires you to be compliant with, that can all be part of that one SOC 2 report and help reduce your compliance overhead into that one examination. One time a year you you get to work with auditors and then you can supply that one report to all of the different interests, whether that's customers or regulators or different countries that need to verify your compliance.
Wonderful. So we have the option to add these services, these additional, you know, certifications or benchmarks, but getting the SOC 2 in itself, it has value in itself, which clients are going to look for. So there's no real alternative. You can add things, but you can't take the SOC 2 out of that equation.
Right.
Approving. Yeah. A very good question. I'd invite Srini as well to contribute and let us know what is SOC 2 readiness, what's the importance, and, you know, even for mature organizations, do you really need SOC 2 readiness?
Ben, you want to go ahead?
I would say without question. Even the clients that I've worked with that went straight into a SOC 2 Type 2 report, there was still a readiness period. So whether they, and they often are working with another organization such as databrackets to help them get that readiness taken care of so that they're ready to meet with the independent third-party auditor such as myself. So I would say without question, the readiness is essential.
So this is Srini here from databrackets. I will share our experience from a readiness organization perspective. So if you have observed, Ben was talking about framework versus controls, right? So the controls are where the rubber meets the road, in our opinion, where you will have to really design some meaningful controls or security standards for your organization to protect either your internal data or your customer data or whatever data in scope for SOC 2 exercise, right? So that is where we come in. And also, I think like Ben said, like if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail, right? So that is where we come in and help you in understanding your risk posture and understanding what kind of controls make sense to your environment and how to implement them successfully, and make sure that like you have a continuous monitoring process to make sure that like these controls are in fact designed properly and being operated properly, right? That's what, as a readiness organization, we come in and add value. So is it something that you could do it yourself without hiring databrackets? Of course you could do it, but is it going to be much more efficient than how we would do it? That's kind of questionable, in the sense we work with PRCCPA and other organizations to identify these controls that are required for organization. So what essentially we do is we come in and go through all the list of controls. There are close to about 130 or 140 controls we have identified, and then like we go through those controls and see what is more effective for you based on what you are trying to accomplish, and then be able to implement a program. And not only that, right? So I think Ben also talked about policies and procedures, the training, the whole 9 yards that that requires you to have in place when you're going for any testing. You don't want to invite Ben's team to come in and do the testing without preparing and before being ready, right? So that is like kind of the thing that we come in and do, and make sure that like when you're saying that you are SOC 2 ready, it is not just in the namesake. You're claiming that you're SOC 2 ready. Your controls are meaningful. Your policies and procedures are indeed in place, and you have them effectively implemented, and you have effective assurance program that makes sure that these controls are going to be not performing only during the testing time across the board and across all the time, right? So that's what we do as the readiness organization. So back to you, Aditi.
Yeah, Srini, it almost sounds like we do a mini audit before the real one. So just to see, okay, is all the testing working? And when you're set and you know that yes, the mini version of the SOC 2 audit is done by a readiness organization, then you move on to the real audit. And it sounds like we cut down the time a lot. So we've been speaking about so many months of planning and readiness and getting all the controls in order, getting a third organization from outside, a third party to check it before we go for the audit, probably reduces a lot of the time as well. I'll move to a question that we've got during the webinar, a very important one. I'd invite both Ben and Srini to answer this one as well. Is SOC 2 meant for large companies or even small or medium companies? So who really needs it? Do only the large companies need SOC 2?
No, without question, any type of organization that's providing a service or processing data or has access to data needs a SOC 2. And I have done SOC 2 reports on organizations that have a handful of employees, up to, of course, billion-dollar organizations. So in today's environment, with the cloud-based applications and our ability to create basically an entire company from our living room and have it appear to function worldwide using all of these cloud-based services, there's organizations that are handling extensive data and are providing services to millions and millions of people. And so they need to be able to show that they are taking that responsibility.
Yeah. So if I need to add a few more things
seriously, and that's where the SOC 2 comes in. So
Yeah, so if I had to add a couple more things to Ben's comments, so SOC 2, of course, it's pretty much applicable for any type of organizations, right? So we worked with small SaaS-based organizations, probably like 15, 20 people, all the way to MSPs who wants to make sure that they can take the SOC 2 examination reports and whatnots to their customers and then assure them about their security standards and whatnots, right? So that is one. And another thing actually I would mention is if you are a company, if you're an organization attending this webinar or listening to this webinar, if you are filling out a lot of security questionnaires and repeating the whole step again and again to different customers and different partners, then SOC 2 definitely is a way to go because I'll give you a practical example. We worked with several of our customers who had to fill in at least 2 to 3 security questionnaires every week. Just think about the time, effort, and the resources that are consumed in filling out these questionnaires. And then like every year these questionnaires comes back, or sometime even like every 6 months these questionnaires comes back, and your customers want to fill out the remediation steps and whatnot. If you are going to be providing this independent third-party SOC 2 examination report, obviously it eliminates a lot of your back and forth on filling out your security questionnaires and things. In fact, I would go to another extent to discuss with your customer and say, like, a lot of customer audits that are happening, you could pretty much be able to provide your SOC 2 examination report and negotiate down some of the time spent on the audit and even get rid of the entire customer audit, right? Because you're already being audited by a third-party independent company, and these details are already available. And then, as you have probably heard it, like these audit needs to happen every year. So that's pretty current, in my opinion. So you don't need to be doing your security questionnaires. You don't need to be spending time on customer audits and whatnots. Yeah, back to you, Aditi.
Thank you, Srini. That is very insightful and really helpful for companies, basically who want to get clients, manage their customer data. So it really doesn't matter about the size, whether you're a small company or a medium. It sounds like anyone who wants to prove their information security benchmarks, that they're meeting them, then for them, SOC 2 is ideal. So I just like to thank Ben and Srini for joining me here, for sharing all your insights. We'll be concluding this webinar, and you can always stay in touch with us. You can call us, email us, and definitely stay connected on social media. We're very grateful for your time, and please feel free to share any additional questions with us and count on us as your one-stop shop for compliance. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
For more information, click on the link below or visit databrackets.com.